Hello anybody, and welcome back to Let's Play Super Metroid. I'm Mr. Devious, or just Deeb, and in the last episode, we defeated Phantoon in the depths of the wrecked ship, and in the process, we unlocked the rest of, well, the wrecked ship. He was keeping the power off, and by bringing it back on, we are able to explore around and kind of use our X-ray visor, which we also got in the last episode, to kind of look around and explore this entire area. Of course, bringing the ship back to life has, of course, made everything that wants to kill us come back to life, so to speak. But we should be able to handle it. Now, there are a whole bunch of enemies in here, like these weird spore things that kind of fly at you. Your best means for that is to shoot them with just normal missiles. Normal shots, even charged up, won't work. But if you come in here, you'll realize that the shallow water here prevents you from making a jump up there. So clearly we aren't able to progress further to the right and out the other side of the wrecked ship, and you can tell this because there's criteria on the other side. Anyway, that's pretty obvious, so I won't bog you down with details about that. So instead we're going to head up further into the ship, which is where we did not explore in the previous episode. We could have gone a bit further up and seen more, of the ship as it was. And of course, you're expected to your first time in here, you're expected to use your X-ray visor to kind of see all these blocks, which I did show off in the previous episode. But now that the power's back on, and now these organisms are out to get us, this entire room is massive and filled with things. You could have come up here when the power was off, but there were no enemies in here. And if you look at those strange computer screens on in the background, it seems to be a clip from a picture of a Metroid, but that seems really weird. Interesting to note, it's important to note the plot of this game again, which was shown in the first episode, in the beginning of the game, that Samus has technically destroyed all the Metroids. She went to their home planet and wiped them out. So why then are there pictures of Metroids in these screens? It's a very subtle detail. It's not like an outright picture of a Metroid, but it is the definite details that you can definitely distinguish that is definitely a Metroid, and that is going to be an issue. Anyway, we're not going through that door on the left, because this is one of those rooms where you have to kill all the enemies inside in order to, well, progress, or just to leave. And the enemies in here are kind of tough. And for your efforts, you unlock this room and the room to the left. This room leads to a missile pack, which I'm gonna get first. And here we have one of our Waddly Woo enemies, which is just kind of, you have to wait for him to walk along until he... Come on. Okay, and sometimes he just decides that he doesn't want to walk all the way, so instead you have to get behind him and give him a good push, and push him all the way, and now you can walk across him because he fills up the spike pits. I'm thinking of another room where you also need to do the same thing. These enemies are so hilarious, because they're not even really enemies. They're like, what are they? Are they garbage robots? That seems to be the general consensus for what these guys are. They're basically mobile trash bins that can also shoot laser rings at you for some reason. I'm also not sure why these conveyor belts are here, just as a practical purpose, even as a gameplay function. In some rooms, I kind of get it, but it kind of raises questions about what this room is even about. These enemies, again, are tough. However, if you give them a good shot from the charged freeze gun and it works, and I still, again, forgot to turn off Moonwalk. Also, you can see, although the enemies have respawned, we are able to go out the way we came. I do think we need to kill them all to go out the other way, though, because we haven't gone out that way after killing all the enemies. It's a weird room. I just generally don't like this room, especially between the sparking machines that just kind of drop sparks on you and cause you to take damage. Anyway, I've looked up a map for progress of Super Metroid as we're going to go through it, and we come outside, by the way. Wrecked ship is interesting in that has a kind of an outside portion, and that's really cool. But I digress. I've looked up a map for this area of the game, and what we can tell so far is that there are 9 power-ups to get in this episode. We've already gotten one, and if you look down there, you shoot that, and we can see it's another reserve tank. But there's not actually anything else you can do in this area. You can check with your scan visor, but the basic purpose of this room is just to kind of show you it's here, and that they're a speed booster. A lot of Super Metroid's power-up collection business is just kind of piecing together the map on your own and trying to connect how do you get to those speed blocks from below? Because obviously you need to Shine Spark, and it's amazing how necessary the Shine Spark becomes around this point in the game onward to getting a lot of the power-ups. And there's one in particular that's kind of infamous, really, but we'll get to that when we get there. There is also, I believe, another missile pack up there that we need to ride these dudes on, because why not, I suppose. Also, unlike Metroid Fusion, Super Metroid, while it does show a dot to indicate where a secret item might be, it doesn't do this for all tiles. And actually, this brings me to another point that I can discuss while I'm riding these dudes, about the X-ray visor. I talked about it a lot in the last episode, but there was one detail I forgot that I was reminded of by Mr. E. Thank you very much for bringing that up. Even though it shows you which... Excuse me? There we go. Even though it shows you which blocks you can shoot or destroy or walk through and which blocks are fake, there are actually blocks that the X-ray visor cannot see through, which are fake and which you can walk through, so that's another reason that the X-ray visor is kind of sucky. It kind of gives you a false sense of completion, kind of like areas that don't have dots despite there being secrets. And speaking of secrets, I am going to go down here where there's a super missile pack. Normally, you would just kind of be expected to... No! May as well get this while I'm here, since I remembered you can also morph ball jump in order to get this missile pack. But yes, we have to go all the way back through the wrecked ship to get up to that area, so I'll see you there. Anyway, now that we're back over here, it's safer to actually scan around this area with the X-ray visor to kind of figure out where you're going. That way you can get this missile without going down to the right and kind of playing around and then having to go through all that again. You know, for how much this game is lauded, I do find it a little surprising how easily people forget some of the downright bad game design decisions there are. Also, this is technically a dead end. If you keep going down, the only way out is to go out through the bottom. Where you actually need to go is through here. This is where you need to go to progress. And this will take us out to the right and bring us back toward a section of the ship, of the wrecked ship we otherwise couldn't get into. You are not worth recharging on. When you get to the later stages of the game, those weird recharge stations, it's not worth really hanging around them unless they're like the enemies that split into 5. If it's just one, you have so much health and so much ammo. And that's one thing I think Super Metroid could also use, is an upgrade to its, just weapon and energy pickups. They could probably introduce a few bigger ones. Metroid Prime fixed this by having 100 health pickups a bit further on in the game. But I digress. We're in a room filled with spikes, and we have to grapple across all these spikes. Ow! And we take damage if we hit the spikes. And, well, who made this room? Is this just a wreckage? There's a wrecked block up there, but no worries. You have time to kind of swing around. And there's a Chozo statue here. Scanning around won't really find you anything, but if you do this, which I'm not sure what entirely the cue for that is. That seems to be like an instinctive thing, and that's kind of an interesting thing. I don't know how to explain it. Pretty much everybody figures out how to do this on their own. It's just a very instinctive thing to do. The open palm is very inviting, and that's good game design. And as we can see, the Chozo statue is carrying us down further into the wreckage of the ship, of the wrecked ship. And it takes us down to this secret area. You can't go back up the normal way, like up the stairs, but where you're supposed to go through is obviously through the door, but you bomb through the bottom, and there is a path up here. And this should take us to a few secrets, actually. All of this is optional. There's just so many secret paths and areas that they designed. And this brings us to a missile pack, but that is not all that is here. You may have noticed that Super Metroid has been using missile packs to kind of throw you off. Like, you'll find a secret area, you'll get a missile pack, and then it kind of tricks you into thinking maybe you have to go back. But you scan this, and you find out you can blow up this Chozo statue with power bombs, and there's not really many you can do that for. You come down this way, and you'll find that there is, well, there's a thing over here. There's a wall up there, and we want to get up that way, because if you'll remember, there were some speed blocks from a little earlier. We scan these walls, we see that these are speed booster blocks. So, that's how we're going to get out, obviously, and let's just kind of clear that out of the way. And now we're going to run to the end, duck, jump, and this should bring us to what we were looking for, this reserve tank. Definitely worth it. Reserve tanks, of course, I've already talked about them, and they're called sub-tanks. I know in the last episode I named them like extra tanks or something from Mega Man X, and BGM Corin gave me crap for it. But you know what? I'll call them whatever I want. You can't stop me. I'm sorry. Anyway, that kind of wraps up that secret area, although I kind of feel like I'm missing something over there. Well, I'm sure it's fine. I'll just mark it off on my map. But I digress. With all that exploration, we actually come to the true reward of coming to the wrecked ship, and the true reward for beating Phantoon. This is why we came here. The gravity suit. Like the Varia suit we got for beating Kraid, we get a gravity suit for beating Phantoon, and we get stylin' purple armor. That is just the best. I really like this shade of purple, and this is really cool. And you might be wondering what it does. Well, if you go out this door, it'll lock you out. Why is that door there? Drop you into the water and give you a immediate feeling of what you can do. Already, it feels a lot better. You can control fluidly underwater like you control out of the water. Don't know why it's called the gravity suit exactly, aside from it, just, it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, that's not what it is. But I'm not going to get into the technicals of it, because this is just awesome. Being able to move fluidly in water is like the best feeling in this game, when moving in water is such a terrible experience otherwise. It's great, and I love it, and it's going to make a lot of the game a lot easier. However, this also means, you can probably guess, that there's going to be water sections coming up. Because now, or rather, we can tackle water sections that used to be in our way before. And that's great, that's really cool. However, we're not going to be going back to some of the areas. There are some areas in, well, I can't really bring up the map here to show you, but there are some areas in Brinstar, I think particularly, where there's water that you need to speed boost through to get through. And quite frankly, those are really out of the way, and I'll get them later, when it doesn't add several minutes onto my recording. Anyway, I'm coming back down here because there's actually something I forgot to get, and Power Bomb is just the easier way to find our way through here. Oh, here it is. There's a little notch here, and if we go through, it will bring us to a secret passage. And at the end of it, there will definitely be something, and it's something worth our time. It's not like just a dumb missile pack, but it does have some tough enemies in the way, and some just waddly robots. You could actually find this room again while the power was off, because there's not technically a door and coming up here, but this robot would have been in the way. He would have been here, and he would have been deactivated, so you wouldn't have been able to go through the passage you need to go through, which is this one, which nets us a super missile. So that is definitely worth the time that it takes to come out of your way to get this. And with that, I think we've pretty much cleared out the wrecked ship. Wrecked ship is a small area, but I really like it because it does what it does. It remains kind of eerie and spooky even after the power comes back on, and even presents a few new mysteries, like what is up with those Metroid pictures that we saw in the rooms up above. What was the purpose of this ship? Why were there Chozo statues in here, aside from being a convenient plot device? It just raises a number of questions that are really... This is how Super Metroid, and just the Metroid series in general, aside from games like Metroid Fusion and Another M, this is how they tell their story, through the world around Samus, and that's pretty much it. So now that we can jump in the water, we can get out through here and go through this door, and now we can... Oh god, there are spikes all over the place in this room. This room is kind of ridiculous. Like, there are spikes on the ceiling, there are spike crushers under spikes, and spikes on the floor. That room is just kind of silly. But anyway, yes. This is how Super Metroid and Metroid best tells its stories, is through its world and its environment, and not through dialogue and narrative, which, when they do it, doesn't usually go as well as they plan. Actually, is there a secret up around here? There is. So, yeah. I knew there was still something left to get in here. I do like the wrecked ship, and I like Phantoon too. He's a fun boss, he's really weird, So we got a lot of water in here, and of course we got the power-up music. And this music that plays whenever you're in a room that definitely has some kind of upgrade, it's really interesting, and it gets us an energy tank, so this was definitely worth coming out of the way. And another thing I like about Super Metroid is even though it doesn't heal you when you use save stations, it does give you... Oh god, there are spikes down here. It does give you a full refill on health whenever you get an energy tank, which is really helpful later on when healing takes a lot longer. Also, for some reason, these spikes only do like 4 damage, and speaking of damage, the gravity suit, like the Varia suit, also increases your defense, and that's really great. I like that the armor upgrades are practical, and they're practical in more than just, you know, great, now you can just walk through water now. It also gives you a significant physical upgrade so that you're better in battle. Now, I don't know if I'm wrong about the gravity suit offering more armor in general, but, I mean, if I'm wrong, just tell me, sure. Because I can't remember off the top of my head, but if Super Metroid doesn't do it, I know that the other Metroid games definitely do. Also, another cool little tidbit is the little arm cannon. It changes depending on what you have active. If you have a missile or the grapple beam active, the end of it changes, and I know that's kind of a dumb little thing, but I just wanted to show that off. It's cute. So it doesn't really matter if you take the high road up here. There's no secrets in this room, which is really strange. At least I don't think there are. Just a moment, let me check on that. Yeah, this room, like this entire east end of Crateria is entirely absent of power-ups, which is kind of strange considering we just got through a section that kind of expects you to use the X-ray scope with no real goodies to find. And speaking of the X-ray scope, we're going to be using it again in an upcoming room, which I don't like. It's kind of annoying, and you'll see why it's annoying after I kill these hives. And basically, these guys are also good at getting some refills, even though I've mostly been getting energy refills, but those have been going to our reserve tank. Also, like the other upgrades, you can turn off the gravity suit and the Varia suit, and then just walk around in Samus's default armor. You can also just exclusively turn on the gravity suit, and I don't know what that adds. Wait a minute. Yeah, she looks the same, even though you need the Varia suit to get her shoulder pads and chest differences in the menu. That probably wasn't intentional. Still, neat things you find. And this is a room where they kind of expect you to maybe use the X-ray visor, and it's so big and open, again, you might expect, well, there are probably secrets in here, but no such thing. Sometimes I question the design philosophy of Super Metroid, and then meanwhile there are rooms in the game where there's like a sub-tank, then a missile hidden behind the sub-tank, then another missile hidden behind that missile. Because, why not? I didn't think I was going to need the X-ray visor for this, but it appears that I might. And yes, that is our way to get up in here. Again, not a lot of visual cues now. They kind of cut down on the visual cues in the environment. Metroid Prime kind of did a lot better with its scan visor and showing you what areas were, you know, more not so inconspicuous. But I digress. In a 2D game where you're reusing tile sets, it's harder to show those areas in the game without it feeling contrived, so I kind of understand. But that's the end of Wrecked Ship and the east end of Crateria. We almost have everything in Crateria, but we're actually coming down now to a new area of the game. It's all sandy, and we kind of got a preview of it earlier. All the way at the bottom, we are in Meridia. And I hate Meridia. And I'm actually not going to be going into Meridia. As we saw the bottom, yes, it is filled with water, and it will be wet down there, but I think, yes, I am going, this episode has actually gone on a lot longer than I thought it would, so yeah, if you want to see further into this area, then I'm just going to have to save it for next time. So yeah, it's time for a water area, and let me just preface this whole thing by saying, pretty much everyone hates Meridia. Everyone. If you want to see it, then I just hope to see somebody in the next one. Bye-bye.